Hey, and welcome back. So in today's video, we are going to look into one of the things that I don't like about the current version of the flip forward display, which is this swinging that you're seeing here. So basically after every character change, the lower flaps keep on swinging and they don't really come to an immediate rest. And that doesn't look great, and visually it's quite distracting because it means that the lower half of the character is kind of like not really at rest. It's still moving around, creating a chaotic picture. So why is that happening? If you look at the split flap display from the side, you always have that central element. It doesn't matter which model you're actually going with, they all look pretty much the same. You have the flaps mounted in those holes. It's kind of like by tiny pins how that's happening, and only gravity pulls them down. So when you take, for example, a screwdriver and move them around, you'll see how easy it is to replicate the swinging motion, because it's what objects do, right? That's basic physics. And every time a flap comes down, it's creating and amplifying the swinging motion again. And of course, if you move the whole unit around, you can make it quite a bit worse. And here again, for illustration purposes, if I'm doing my best impression of a human stepper motor, then this is what's happening. On every single flap change, you have the swinging motion. What I just hinted at, what you want to build is a backstop. You want to build something that arrests that motion so it cannot happen. This is what we are going to be doing in Fusion 360. So I designed this component that's sitting on the lower part of the case. It's got to be mounted using a square nut that you basically screw in from the bottom of the case. And the idea is that it's going to stop the flaps pretty hard so that they cannot swing back and forth like you saw in the video. So we're going to quickly slice that and 3D print it. As you can see, you can get really nice 3D prints without even cleaning your metal print sheet, but you probably should not do that. And then we're moving over to assembly here on the workbench. You can see the component here. First thing we do is really small actually. The very first thing that I'm going to do here is take that M3 nut and kind of like force it in. Unfortunately, it's not quite easy. And since the print orientation was so that the side of the part was actually laying on the bed, the overhang led to a problematic dimensional accuracy at the part where you press that square nut in. But it's fine, it's not critical. Next thing we are going to do is to screw that component in place. And there's a lot to be said about how easy it is to assemble something once you design it in a 3D program. This is going to be much easier if you don't assemble it in a complete display. So obviously it should have been assembled and put in there much earlier in the process, but I didn't think of it. So this is why I'm putting it in now. You just take like I think it was an M10 screw, M3 10 screw, put it in, and that's the whole magic. And now if we look at it from the side, it actually does what it's supposed to be doing. It stops the motion and the flaps kind of like neatly line up on it as was the idea. And if you compare it to the one display that doesn't have it, there's much less swinging, there's much less motion once a move is basically completed. So it kind of like is goal achieved. But I was playing around and I wasn't fully happy, to be honest. So I was still too much of back and forth going on. Compared it a few more times, but then decided for myself that nope, I can do better. So back to the drawing board, or better, Fusion 360. Since I didn't actually fully remember how I made it, that was it took a second more to increase the height of like by 3 millimeters or something. Back 3D printing again, the orientation is important. It's important you print it on the side so that the layer lines are actually not interfering with the flap movement. We'll look into that in just a second. So the second component is there, and here you see that the layer lines are aligned so that the flaps don't scratch over them, right? If you print it in the wrong orientation, what will happen is that every flap will scratch over every single layer line, so we don't want that to be happening. That's why 3D printing really has these important nuances. Again, we're putting in this screw, and now we're putting it in the display module itself. Again, you can watch me here having two camera angles that really are not the best for seeing how to assemble something, but I'm still getting used to this YouTube thing. So thanks for your patience and understanding. And after everything is in, we see that it's much better now. There's still some minimal swinging motion, but it's nothing compared to where we started. The problem really is you cannot pull that component much up further, because then it just looks odd looking at it from the front. So I feel like this is an okay compromise at this point. As you can see, the display is wobbling a bit because that screw that's used to fix that component is kind of like protruding a bit from the case. This is something I'll have to probably fix with a slightly more accurate design. But yeah, looking at it, I'm happy. And this is going to be the next addition to making the display a tiny bit better. Again, thanks for watching all the way to here. If you're interested in following this journey and building a production-ready split flap display, then obviously like and subscribe, and hopefully see you next time around. Bye!